I'm going to verify that. So hopefully it does. Excellent. I think we are live on YouTube. Excellent. Woohoo. And let me check LinkedIn right now. Wait, how'd I? Oh, sorry. I've got too many YouTube windows open, so now I don't know which one's which. So it's okay. I think I've got it figured out now. All right, and now let me go ahead and get LinkedIn going. There we go. Perfect. We do have LinkedIn open, and we have a bunch of people. All right, perfect. LinkedIn folks, thank you very much. We are off to the races with today's Delta Lake Community Office Hours. Just give us one more minute to let some additional folks come in, but by the same token, if you do have any questions, please chime in, either through your LinkedIn comments or through the Delta Lake YouTube channel comments. Either one works. We will be monitoring them and trying to answer your questions. So give us 1 or 2 more minutes to get ourselves started, and then we'll be off to the races. If you guys want to chime in right away, and thanks Zane for noting that we're live. We just couldn't log into. I couldn't log into LinkedIn for some reason. But hey, why don't you chime in and tell us where you're based out of? Well, which city you're from? Either from the YouTube or from LinkedIn. My name is Denny Lee, and I'm actually based in the Seattle, Washington area. Very, very rainy Seattle, Washington area today. How about yourself, QP?
I'm QP. I'm based in Bay Area, East Coast. It was rainy for the last 2 days, but it's all sunny now. So,
glad to hear that. And then Ryan, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ryan, and data software engineer, and I currently live in Bay Area. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we can probably start now. So in that case, let's go ahead and just dive into it. Again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the YouTube comments or to LinkedIn comments. We are monitoring them now, and we will go ahead and answer those questions, okay? But we'll probably start with a little bit about in terms of where we are with the Delta roadmap. So I'm going to go ahead and ask some questions for Ryan, a little bit about, QP first about Delta Rust, where we're currently at. And then I'm going to ask a few questions to Ryan in terms of where we're currently at with the Delta roadmap. Specifically, I believe we had a lot of questions about Apache Spark 3.2 support. So figured we go ahead and dive into that too. So first things first, go ahead and QP, why don't you tell us a little bit where we're currently at with the Delta Rust API. We had a webinar a few weeks ago about Kafka Delta just being in production at Script. Anything else that you want to add in terms of like what are the hot topic items or things that people want to work on? And I actually have a particular item that I think that I want to ask people to join, but I wanted you to start first.
Yeah, so I think at least for me, there are 2 major items that we were working on. One is reducing the memory usage of Delta RS. For really large tables, we noticed that it's actually less efficient than the Scala implementation. So we identified some gaps that we can optimize to reduce the memory usage by 10 to 100 times. So that's what the community is working on. We're working on a design for that right now. And then the other thing is I am experimenting with the new Parquet implementation in Rust, which is supposed to have 5 to 10x speed improvement. I'm also rewriting the whole checkpoint parsing logic to go full in column to parse the data column by column instead row by row. So that's another item that I'm working on. So mostly performance improvement at this point. Other than that, I don't think there's anything major going on.
Okay, cool. Well, I did have a couple of questions, and then I'm going to actually answer a couple of questions live, and then I'll switch to Ryan, and then I'll switch to Scott. Scott's actually here. He does have for some reason Ryan's name, so I'm not sure what that happened, but that's actually Scott, not Ryan. There's not 2 Ryans. Okay.
Hi everyone. By the way, Denny, Vinny is unable to join the meeting.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm not sure why that happened, but all right. I'll see what I can do to try to get her in. Meanwhile, for you, QP, because I'm going to start with you. I'm just curious. What is the timeline to actually take some of the writing capabilities that's in Kafka Delta Ingest to be basically added back into Delta Rust primary, the core? I'm just curious.
I don't think we have a specific timeline for this, but it's more up to the community. We mostly waiting for pull requests from scripts end. We don't have agenda for that. But if anyone is interested in that, please feel free to take the code from Kafka Delta Ingest and merge that into Delta RS. I think it's ready for merge at this point.
Oh, that's good to hear. Okay, cool. Well, then this is where I will do my usual thing, which is to say, hey, check us out at delta.io. And then also, we're actually all on the Delta user Slack channel. So you can, in addition to talking to all of us, you can also go ahead and ask your questions there, no problem at all. And if you, of course, want to do any pull requests or any help us with any merges, whether it's the Delta Rust or Delta Core or anything else, this is a great way to talk to all of us. Okay, so perfect. Thank you very much, QP. Appreciate that. Ryan, by the way, we have a couple other questions coming in on both LinkedIn and YouTube. We will answer them live, but I did want to give Ryan and Scott a little bit to chime in also to about where we're currently at. So I'm going to go to Ryan. Ryan, why don't you do a quick introduction of who you are for starters? And then after that, my question to you will be about what's the current status for the Delta 1.1 release and Apache Spark 3.2 support.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan and currently mostly working on Delta Lake project. And for Delta 1.1 release, we are currently working on this, and it should be available in like 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. And this will support Spark 3.2, also Scala 2.13, which is because Spark is already supported Scala 2.13, and it's pretty great to see we are upgrading Scala version to like a better and also more powerful Scala version. In addition, we also have a lot of feature improvements in Delta Lake 1.1. Like we make a lot of improvements in the Delta merge operations. And so we are also preparing the release note. We'll share with the community soon. Yep.
Excellent. That's very helpful. Thank you very much, Ryan. And again, to everybody that's doing LinkedIn, YouTube, we are looking at your questions and we will answer them shortly. I just wanted to make sure we had a quick status update for everybody first. So, Scott, you threw me off again because as soon as I saw your name, it said Ryan again. So I'm like, dang it. Okay. Scott, can we have the current status update on both the Delta Standalone writer and also the Flink Delta connector? And then I'll answer some questions concerning Presto. But first things first, why don't you introduce yourself real quick, and then those questions, please.
Sounds good, and good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Scott. I'm a software engineer on the Delta ecosystem team here at Databricks, and I'm working on a bunch of open source projects right now, including the Delta OSS 1.1 release with Ryan. So the two main projects, though, that I'd like to talk about are the Delta Standalone writer and our Flink sync connector that's also being actively developed right now. So the Standalone writer, we're hoping to release next coming weeks. We just got to release Delta OSS 1.1 first, and then all of our efforts will be on the Standalone writer. And that's really exciting. And I can talk about some of the improvements and features that that's adding later on. And for the Flink connector, progress is going steady. We're just in kind of like a QA and testing phase right now. We are reviewing the code, making sure it's up to our standards and it's looking great, and just double checking all the edge cases as well through unit tests. So coming along really well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you providing that context. And so finally, I did want to give a quick shout out. Vinky and Sajith were not able to join today, but I did want to call out that we're also having some solid traction on the Presto to Delta reader as well. Okay, so another integration as well. So right now we have both the Presto code and the Trino code. The Trino code is actually being tested as we speak. So it's leveraging the Delta Standalone reader in order to be able to, read. So Presto and Trino can now read from Delta Lake without using the manifest file. So I wanted to give that quick update as well. All right, so perfect. Now diving into the question. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question. And actually, this one is from Oscar from LinkedIn, which is what actually is Delta Lake? Why is Delta Lake important? So just an introductory of what Delta Lake is. So I'm gonna open it to forum to either to any of you three on what on providing that answer. So anybody want to take a stab at that one first?
Ryan, I think you would have the best context on this to give the best explanation.
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat the question again?
No problem, Ryan. The question is, what is Delta Lake? And, invariably, why is Delta Lake important too?
Yeah, so Delta Lake, as you see, we are using Delta in the name, which is basically indicates we are maintaining a lot of incremental Delta change to the table in a transaction log. With this, we can provide ACID transaction support. So you don't need to worry about concurrent queries. And for all these transaction log formats, we are using open formats such as Apache and Json, which we can leverage Spark to process these logs in parallel by using your whole cluster to speed up all the metadata operations. Yeah, and in addition, we also provide a lot of DML commands, such as merge, update, delete, which you can modify your table. And also, lastly, we also provide a lot of our own spatial commands, such as describe history. You can audit your all the changes in your table by looking at the history of your table.
Perfect, Ryan. Thank you very much. And so I'll just chime in. I actually just realized I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Denny Lee. I'm a developer advocate here at Databricks. I want to actually add to Ryan's question just because I'm formerly a database guy. So I actually used to be part of the SQL Server database team. And the one thing I want to add to Ryan's call out is that inherently what's great about databases is the fact that you had ACID transactions to protect the data. And you're going hey, I have a data lake with all this data. Do I want to protect that data? And so ultimately, that's what it boils down to. Taking the transactional protection of your database and actually going ahead and applying that to your data lake. Now, what Ryan called out is all these cool features and the abilities, because we have those ACID transactions to protect your data, now, bam, we're good to go, right? And so that's the important thing and the important call out. So hopefully that answers your question, Oscar, QP or Scott, if there's anything else that I might have missed or Ryan or I might have missed. Otherwise, we'll switch to the next question.
I mean, the answer is already on your T-shirt.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's true. You're right. That's true.
I don't think it's
we should have just said this, right?
Yeah, exactly. We should all read this. The other thing I would add is that it really made it a big paradigm change when you can do both streaming and batch in a single data source, a single table, and that made a huge difference for us as Squid.
Awesome. Thanks very much for the call out, for the T-shirt as well. By the way, if you did fill out the Delta Lake survey, we actually had more than 630 people that actually filled out the Delta Lake survey. You will actually get this T-shirt. By the way, I just want to call that out. So we will be doing this again every probably half a year with you to fill out the survey. So yeah, but. And if you're wondering, yes, we are going to send them out. It's just that because of their 630 shirts, I needed to order some more shirts first before I could send them out. So my bad. I didn't realize it turned out to be that popular. So, all right, next question from Yusuf. So Yusuf actually has a question, and I'm going to pose this to anybody here. Has a question about about unstructured data, specifically about images. This is Yusuf from YouTube. He's wondering, can you actually store image data or unstructured data in Parquet files or into Delta Lake? And what is the impact, especially when you're trying to deal with, for sake of argument, image data or unstructured data when you're dealing with connecting from Kafka to Delta Lake? So that's a two-parter basically. So anybody want to take a quick dive into that first?
I can perhaps talk a little bit about it. And so you can, so because Delta, like Ryan mentioned before, Delta Lake use Parquet, right? And JSON to store the metadata and Parquet to store the actual data. And in Parquet, you can actually store arbitrary binaries, bytes. So it's definitely possible to store any kind of data into Delta tables. But the only thing to be aware of is you have to encode it before you store into Delta table, because Delta Lake in the official spec, we only support a list of types for the columns. So you have to encode that. I think we do support binary string in Delta table. So I'm guessing that's how you would encode those data into Delta tables. We actually, I think the main benefit you get from doing that is if your, like say image is stored in S3, if you want to query that, you have to do individual S3 API calls to get those images. But if you store in Delta tables, not only do you get asset support, but also you can do batch load from of those binary data more efficiently instead of issuing individual S3 calls.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anything? Hopefully, Yusuf, we did answer your question. If it's not, please go ahead and chime in through YouTube, so that way we can go ahead and continue answering that. Okay. All right. Let's switch over to LinkedIn again. So LinkedIn. Let's see here. Shiv actually has a great question, and again, open the door for everybody. That they have a business need to scan and search the entire Delta Lake of thousands of tables to find all occurrences of a email address. And so, do we have any ideas on how to make that particular query somewhat efficient? And so, I do want to call out that if it's just a bunch of we're not looking at the data in any form of structured way, then it'd almost be better just to not even look at it as a set of tables. It'd be better just to go ahead and literally run some distributed RDD type queries and just say, look for a particular email. But assuming there is some structure, I think then, yes, I mean, QP, Ryan, or Scott, if you've happen to have any context on how a type of query like that would be more efficient.
Yeah, basically for such use case, I actually suggest you use only a few tables rather than thousands of tables. This basically because Delta is kind of using transaction logs. If you have thousands of tables, then we need to load thousands of tables transaction logs, which basically is very slow when you are using Delta. But if you have a giant table with and putting all the thousands of tables into one table, then it will be much faster, and then it will scale very well if you just have a few tables. Yeah,
perfect.
Hope this answers your question.
I think so. I believe it answers the question. So I believe, Shiv, if it does not answer your question, please chime in on LinkedIn and we'll do our best to follow up. But I believe that answers your question there. Okay. Let's see. Let me go ahead and switch. There is a question from Marcin on LinkedIn. And so he's asking the question, I'm using Delta Lake with table level transactions for writing data. What would be best approach to tackle multi-table write transactions and rollback? Okay, so this is the old multi-table write transactions of rollback when it comes to, since Delta Lake supports a single table transactions and you can roll it back by basically overwriting from a previous version via time travel, how would we potentially resolve that problem using multi-table writes? And I'll open the floor for that question, but by the same token, I happen to have an answer too, so just in case. So, but anyways, go ahead and chime in. Anybody here first, and then I'll chime in afterwards.
Yeah, so basically Delta doesn't support multi-table transactions, and you can basically post your comment in our roadmap GitHub issue, and then if this get a lot of upvotes, we are consider to think about how to design this. This is a pretty challenging problem, and it probably will take a lot of time thinking about how to design this. So yeah, but currently we don't have a good answer for such use case.
Right. And so saying that, there actually are two other potential answers that I can potentially provide for this, okay? So in terms of multi-table transactions, there's one which is basically you add the transaction. Now this one you doing what yourself, okay? It's not for the faint of heart. So I do want to call that. In other words, you're going to need to write some code, okay? But basically, you take since you can actually alter the metadata itself within the transaction log, you can basically go ahead and take the transaction ID of each transaction for each table, and then upload that information in the metadata as well. So that way, whenever you have to roll back, you know which one to roll back to. Now, That's a lot of code that you have to write yourself. So people are going to like, dude, what the heck? Okay. Is there just something that's out of the box available? Now, as Ryan answered, right now we don't have it just because it is a very challenging problem, but we can certainly go ahead and if the community is asking for it, absolutely, we can go ahead and start thinking about that problem. But there's also happened to be solutions from LakeFS and also from Nessie, which is to basically give you that Git-like Git-like functionality, excuse me, for your data lakes. And they do they have various levels of integration with Delta Lake right now. In fact, we're working closely with with both the LakeFS and the Nessie community to do exactly that. Okay, we recently had a talk with LakeFS, actually, with Paul Stingham and myself for LakeFS and Delta Lake functionality. And Nessie, we actually, by the way, have regular open community meetings with the Nessie community every 2 weeks or so. In fact, I believe the next meeting is this coming Tuesday. So yeah, if you happen to need it right this second, there's actually those particular 3 routes. And again, so those are custom code with altering the metadata, LakeFS and Nessie. And then again, absolutely go ahead and create a GitHub issue and get votes, because then that actually helps us understand what the community asks are to potentially go ahead and work on that faster. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. I think that was from Marcin. Great question from you, and hopefully that helps answer your question. Okay, all right. So I do have a support question from YouTube that I thought was applicable. It says, does Delta support struct types and array types? Apparently, Pavan had tried to do this in the past, but it didn't work and had to write directly to Parquet. So yeah, let me just pose the question open. Like, does Delta support struct types and array types?
Scott or Ryan?
Yep, yeah, it's part of the supported types. So I'm sorry that you had an issue in the past. If you're able to reproduce it, definitely go ahead and make a ticket, and we can probably help you out with that now.
Yes, in fact, just I wanted to add in, as of Delta Lake 0.80, if I recall correctly, we also even had merge support for struct types and array types as well. So it was supposed to be there. So again, if you do run into any issues, please let us know, because that should have worked basically. So yeah, but again, you know, maybe there's a bug. So again, if you got a repro, let us know. Okay. Sorry, I meant to click on LinkedIn. I clicked on the mute button by accident. Sorry about that. All right, let's see. Hey, Ryan, there is a question from the community about JSON support. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it again. Let me try to find that. I'm sorry, guys. This LinkedIn is pretty long now, so I'm having a hard time finding everybody's question. Okay, I'm sorry. If you can, I don't see the JSON question here any longer. I'm not sure why. So I'm going to go ahead and chime in on some other questions. And for the person that was asking the JSON question, please go ahead and put it back in. I actually did want to try to answer it, but I can't seem to find it for some reason. Okay. And by the way, Mahir, I love your thank you. I'm glad you love the t-shirt. Like I said, we will send out a survey in the new year, and this time I'll order more shirts, so that way we'll be better prepared. And you'll basically, this is what we usually do, which is we want you to fill out a survey to tell us what is important for us as the Delta Lake community to be working on. And in return for you spending 10 minutes of your time to tell us this information, we give away t-shirts. So anyways, all right. So there is a great question from Shraman. I apologize if I didn't say your name correctly. Any plans on releasing new Delta connectors for Apache Hive?
New Delta connector for Apache Hive. So we already have like a Hive connector, and in the next release we will support Hive 3, both Hive 2 and Hive 3 in the next release. So I'm not sure whether what this means. Maybe just asking like Hive 3 support, which we will release Hive 3 connector soon.
Excellent. No, let's assume that for now. If you had something, Shraman, if you actually had something else that you were asking specifically about Hive, let us know. But just like Ryan called out, we already have Hive 2 support, and Hive 3 support is coming out quite soon. Okay. And to June, you're going, oof. I'm assuming that has to do with the t-shirts. So my apologies. Again, survey will go out, and we can chime in. Alariza, again, I apologize if I'm saying your name incorrectly. Is Delta Lake a proper for real-time analytics? Okay, that's the question. Is Delta Lake proper for real-time analytics? QP, by any chance you want to dive in, since you seem to do a lot of analytics?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what's your definition for real time. Is it sub-seconds? Is it minute latency? So I think Delta Lake it's pretty good when the latency requirements is not strict. It's not too strict. For example, if you're okay with getting updates from every couple of minutes or every 10 minutes, it's actually pretty good and it's able to handle that load. If you want sub-second latencies, then yeah, it's not going to work. We do a lot of, so if we do a lot of real-time updates for our data tables and consume those in our dashboard, and typically we get second, minute, about minutes updated latencies for our dashboard, and it's been working really well for us.
Right, and then just to add to QP's call out, right, if you're trying to do even faster, that's when you either use Structure streaming itself or you use Flink, and yes, Flink, the competitor to Spark per se, but there's a Flink to Delta connector. So yes, we all believe that this is exactly, all of us need to use something to ensure the reliability to your data, which is why we have a Flink Delta connector. And incidentally, we actually are working with the folks over at Viverica, formerly known as Data Artisans, specifically to go help this process, right? So just to let you know, so if you do need to do that sub-second, this is where the Flink or Spark Structure streaming scenario comes in. And then when you want to, once you can write the data to your Delta Lake, your data lake, your Delta Lake, and then from there, no problem at all. And incidentally, for some folks that want to do CDC based off it, Paul Room and myself had, I think, earlier this year had done a using Delta as your CDC source. So just in case you want that particular frame, that's a pretty cool video as well. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Ariza. And again, number one, I apologize if I butchered your name. Number two, hopefully I answered your question. If you have a follow-up, we've got about 2 minutes left, but if you have a follow-up, please do chime in. There's a great question from Remy. Do we plan to allow drop columns in a Delta table? I'm going to ask either Scott or Ryan for that answer.
Yeah, then you can also answer this. You already put this in our roadmap, right?
Fair. Thanks for calling me out, but I figured I want one of you guys to do that.
Yeah, we do want to support this, and this is already in our roadmap. We are kind of working on this, and it's unlikely in 1.1 release, but we are expect to make this in 1.2 release. Probably happening early next year.
Got it. Thanks very much. Okay, so June, thank you very much for chiming in about Sharman's question. There's apparently a JSON compatibility issue. Okay, so apparently we had talked to you, Ryan, actually about that. So I was just curious about by any chance, do you happen to recall what this JSON compatibility issue with Delta Lake was in the past? It actually resulted in, I believe, something like an array out of exception issue. I apologize that I'm putting you on the spot, but yeah.
For like a Delta Lake in Spark or like a standalone reader?
I believe this was a Delta Lake Spark issue, not a standalone reader one, but I freely admit the fact that I don't know that one.
Yeah, maybe you can create an issue on GitHub so we can look at this and answer your question.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, so Sharman, June, thank you very much for propping the question back in. Sharman, if you can go ahead and create a GitHub issue and let us know. Basically, the four of us here and a bunch of other engineers, we are actively monitoring it. And if you can chime in there, we'll definitely go ahead and answer your question there. The other place, of course, is to go ahead and ping on Slack as well. And so hopefully that answers your question. I will go ahead. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and actually probably end today's session because there are some great questions, remaining questions. I apologize if I missed them, but just we have 1 minute left. There are some compete questions here. And by the way, we do want to be very clear. We do not do compete answers. Okay. I have no problem this is where we're going to go ahead and answer questions in terms of how Delta Lake works or how you can use Delta Lake. When it comes to comparisons with other technologies, we won't do it here because we don't think we'll do fair justice for the other technologies either. Okay, so I think we can honestly say that the four of us and anybody else that do these community office hours, we're slightly biased. So I don't want to pretend otherwise. Okay, so. Saying that, I apologize if we haven't answered all your questions, but please join us at the Delta user Slack. You can continue asking your questions there, and as well, go ahead and join the GitHub. So go to the Delta Lake GitHub where you can ask your questions there as well. So those are two great places, and of course Stack Overflow too. So without further ado, I want to thank QP, Ryan, and Scott's time. I appreciate you guys chiming in. Again, join us at delta.io. Thank you very much. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for the next community office hours.
Bye, everyone.